So keeping in mind that even I was falling into focusing my attention on the illusion rather than the solution. Well, the first thing I did, and almost every time, the first thing I do with a steam locomotive is follow a couple of steps. Now, from owners, I get reports that, well, I think I know what this is. If you'll just replace or rebuild the reverse unit, or you'll just check the motor, I think maybe the armature is burned out or shorting. I know we're going to get to those, and I will take a look at them in a holistic approach of rebuilding the entire train. But the first thing that I check, just based on experience, is whether or not the rims are slipping in rotation with the wheel, or they're slipping opposing the wheel, in other words, on and off. And I test that simply by squeezing the wheels. I just take it and squeeze them down, rotate it a little bit and squeeze them some more. And if I see the least little bit of movement, that's usually a sign that that is the root cause. Now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, meaning that it's just not going to jump out at you, but that's what experience has driven me to do. The other thing I do is I squeeze the wheels on the axle. Now I want you to watch what happens down here on this one. Notice the gap right here. You see that movement? The wheel is moving independent of the axle on and off. So in real time, as the train's running, the gauge is changing. And I can assure you, I will state my reputation on it, that that is the root cause, and I've got it separated about as far as it'll go now. That is the root cause of this, and will be the solution that I focus on. But while the train is complete, and of course that'll require a complete disassembly to get down to this point, and it is the reason that I'll have to pull the wheel, and therefore the wheel puller is going to be demonstrated. And I'm also going to keep in my back pocket the wheel compression tool, because the other thing I noticed that is usually a key indicator is there was excessive lubrication right here at the axle point with the wheel. And the first thing I did when I picked the train up was I noticed there was a lot of oil or grease right in here. And I said, I bet I know what it is. Sure enough, that's what it was. And that is the slipping of the wheel on the axle. One more time. Watch how it closes up. See it move up? That is enough to allow these to have erratic performance on the rail. And this one had never done it before, but I think it's just got to the point where the lubrication has, and it's my fault, has gone down the core of the axle from inside the motor down the axle and reached the wheel and caused it to slip. Now I have since, when I start rebuilding these, pay very careful attention to that and sometimes reinforce the wheel on the axle. Now you might say, well, why aren't we going to see a demonstration of a quartering tool if you're going to have to pull the wheel off? Well, I don't use a quartering tool. I've never had to so far. Now, I'm not saying they're not worth their value of what you would pay for one or the practice of learning how to apply one. I'm sure they are. But I've just found a workaround to that, and I'll demonstrate that as well. Now, that depends upon whether or not I have to take all 6 drivers off, 3 on each side, or whether or not I'm just concentrating on the forward driver and the driver attached to the geared axle. If this wheel, which of course is a false wheel, it doesn't even touch the rail, is never removed, then it maintains the quartering relationship. And I'll show you how I transfer that quartering relationship to these 2 sets of drivers that are flanged on both sides, and I will be doing that on this one as well. The other thing that I do before getting started, and maybe this is the part that would make you nervous if you don't have a lot of experience in disassembling and reassembling these, is I start out with a lot of photography. I'll take profiles, and notice that in this profile I've aligned the side rod up with the axles for horizontal. I'll take photographs of the profiles on both sides. I'll take photographs underneath, probably focusing down to make sure I've got a shot of where every screw is applied, even the motor. And of course I'll follow that up when I disassemble, when I take the body off, with photography of just the chassis. Then I will, in the early days, what I was doing is I was printing a picture of the locomotive and then taping the screws in the position from whence they came. Now that allowed me to go back and retrace my steps pretty easily about how to reassemble it. Excuse me. But now that I've got more experience, I'm simply taking these pieces, like the side linkages, and taping them to a piece of paper for one reason, to make sure they don't get lost or mixed up with another disassembled train. I label the paper, I label the direction in which the boiler is pointed, and then for the lower side or the low end of the paper, I've got this side, the right side. The left side will be on the high end of the paper, and it just keeps them all separate, and they can stay there forever while I'm working on the train. I'm not, in this particular case, going to do anything to the tender other than make sure that the contact wheels, the swipe springs or leaf springs are all in good working order and have good tension applied to them. I'm not going to remove the wheels and axles. The only thing in this is the wiring and of course the weight, and you can see the screw for the weight right there. So I'm not going to take this one apart, and the other reason I'm not going to take it apart is it's got tab and slot construction, not screws, and those tabs are very delicate. They can snap off very easily. This one's already lost at least one, I believe. So I want to prevent doing that. You'll notice that these are, I think all of our problems lie up in here, with probably some zealous over lubrication by myself. And I'm going to correct that and be a little bit more selective as to how I apply the lubrication. Probably not use any lightweight lubrication such as 3-in-1 oil. I'll probably be using strictly on the gears even. I'll probably be using the Lebel 102 gear lubricant.